Welcome, welcome. Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. We are here to talk about materials pledge for reporting year 25, product level reporting today. We had a session on firm and project level a couple weeks ago, and today we're going to deep dive into product level reporting. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, put your name and your firm, say hey, that would be appreciated. Get some conversation. You can put your questions in there as well. And we will have some Q&A at the end of the session where you'll be able to unmute and raise your hand and ask questions. But let's jump into it. Next slide. Great. So general timing. This is slightly different from last year. Just wanted to call that out, that we have a April 30th deadline for the materials pledge this year, and that will should stay the same going forward. And I will introduce myself. I'm Melanie DeCola. I am the AIA staff person who's directing our two climate action pledge programs. So that includes the 2030 commitment as well as the materials pledge. And I'm joined by Andrew. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Andrew Hassan here, manager on the Climate Action Pledge Programs team. If you have emailed the materials at AIA.org, likely have seen me respond to you at least within the last few months. So pleasure to be here and happy to answer any questions you have in the chat.
And we are also joined by Maria Pepys and Jay Hindmarsh, who are current and past co-chairs of the Materials Pledge, and they will be helping to answer questions as we get a little further into the session. Do you want to introduce yourselves now? Just say hey.
Sure.
Sorry, Jay, caught you at the wrong moment.
I'll jump in first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Melanie covered it. Maria Pappies, I lead sustainability with you in Cole, architecture and engineering, but have been with the Materials Pledge for several years, and I'm in my kind of final year on the committee. But excited about all the work that has been done for reporting, and excited to be here today to answer some questions if we've got some.
Yeah, we'll never let you actually totally leave, Maria.
One more year.
Jay Hindmarsh, I'm a sustainability leader here at Miller Hall in Seattle. We also have a San Diego office. And yeah, so this is my last year as co-chair, and I'm sure Melanie will, or Andrew will also share. We have a great group of volunteers in the Materials Pledge Working Group this year from actually across the country, so we're well represented. And yeah, glad to be here for questions.
Great, thanks so much. Just some generic pledge information to share here. Materials at AIA.org is our general inbox for all questions. That's manned by Andrew, and he will do his best to get your question answered. If you have specific questions on open water, I can help with access on those, but please do use the materials email. And then we have another open office hour on April 23rd, which is going to be a true open office. You can come to us with any questions, any concerns. We will help troubleshoot. There won't be slides for that one. We'll just jump right into helping folks out with reporting. And we'll put some of those in the chat as well. Next. All right, some very basic overview before we get into more detailed product questions or product reporting. In order to report your data, we require that you are a Materials Pledge signatory, which is pretty straightforward, and we require firm level metrics to be reported. The optional are the project and the product. That's only bolded because that's what we're here to talk about today. And then we strongly recommend that you have a materials action plan or a sustainability action plan with a materials section in it, and do some education back out to your firm about your materials strategies for your firm. On the right is a little bit more detailed. Just want to call out a couple of things. We're only asking for projects to be reported to the materials pledge once. And that's when you get to the kind of CD phase of your project. And you can share your reporting link via the collaborator function. If folks have questions about that, I can show that later on. And for firm level reporting, please coordinate with whoever might be collaborating on one submission. For project and product, you can do multiple submissions, and we're going to be walking through the spreadsheet on this call today. Next. All right, jumping into some general resources. These were included in some previous sessions as well. And just to note, this session will also go up on the YouTube channel if you want to refer back to it at any point. This was the RY24 materials pledge by the numbers, which was 2024's summary of data. And this was only the second ever one that was put out. It's pretty comprehensive. It grew a lot from the first year to the second year. And we will be doing that again, putting out the RY25 version later in October of this year with all your lovely data in it. Next. We also have an AIAU course called Living in a Material World, which features Jay and Simona, as well as Maria, and goes into a deeper dive into the RY24 data. If you want to nerd out on what was in the last report, definitely check that out, and you'll get more details about the data itself. Next. And as mentioned before, we strongly recommend that you have a sustainability action plan, and this QR code takes you to the page on the AIA website where we have two downloadable documents. One is sustainability action plan specifically, and the second one is materials action plan, which is brand new as of last year, that will help walk you through some basic information about the materials pledge, as well as how to begin to formulate one for your own firm. And we hope you go check that out and download it for your firm. Next. All right, getting into more specific level guidance, I wanted to call it a few things, and we will show you where these live. But we want everybody to join the Materials Pledge peer-to-peer network, and we'll be jumping into that in a couple of slides. But did want to call out that we have a frequently asked questions document up on the library, which sort of like the DDX help pages, if you do 2030 reporting, is a similar document that should help answer some kind of basic reporting questions. And feel free to go check that out, download it, and share it around your firm as you're doing reporting. Next. And brand new, as of today, hot off the presses, is this new crosswalk, which some of our working group members have been working on. This is a tool for firms, which you can download, will also be in the Materials Pledge peer-to-peer network library. And this is really for you to take and use within your firm. You can customize this, you can edit it, but it's basically showing where there are elements from LEED v 4.1 and v5, well v2, and living building v4. And there's tabs within this crosswalk for each of those. I'm just showing the kind of LEED v5 snapshot here. And there's a little key at the top. You'll be able to see where things sort of overlap with Materials Pledge reporting, and hopefully gets you one step closer to understanding the kinds of data that you'll need for reporting. Great. So I'm going to go into a little bit of this and then turn it over to Andrew for some slides and demo. But we wanted to call out some great questions that were brought up last year in terms of people wondering where they should get started with products specifically. And Maria and Jay can speak to this as well. But we would like to emphasize that we really would like all kinds of different products. We're not just interested in your highest performing products or ones you think might look best in reporting data. We really want to understand the whole materials landscape, and specifically for your firm, if you're using a certain kind of product a lot, whether it's drywall, carpeting, whatever it might be, we want to understand those that have the kind of biggest impact on the profession and projects right now. And again, our community hub is the same as the peer-to-peer network. There's some great kind of conversation starters already up there. Next. So just calling out that, again, we're interested in your priority project product types for your firm. You could also, if you wanted to focus on one specific impact category, that's another kind of element. And this matrix is in the FAQ document. It's also in one of the reporting guides as well, if you want to reference it. But it's a good way to kind of get the conversation started, or if you're trying to make a decision about what kinds of products you want to report, it's a good place to start. And I'm going to turn it over to Andrew from here.
I was on mute. Great. Let me know if you could see my screen, Melanie, if I pull it up. Do you see the live version of the peer-to-peer network?
Yep, I do now.
Great.
Yep.
Perfect. So as mentioned, please go ahead and join the peer-to-peer network. It's a great place to obviously engage in discussions with fellow members and signatories, but also it's where we keep our repository of resources for reporting. So for this specific open office hours, we're going to get into where you can find on the peer-to-peer network the product level reporting spreadsheet. So you'll see here, it should be kept up to date at all times. This is the most recent version. So if you've perhaps had received an email or any, like you're not really sure as to where the most recent version of the product reporting spreadsheet lives, it is right here on the Community Hub. So just another reason to join. When you click on it, I'll kind of slide out, just go here and say view entry page. That brings you to the full page with instructions. As you'll see in a second, these instructions are also in the first tab of the product level reporting spreadsheet. So yeah, all those instructions match whatever is here on the Community Hub. You'll just go here and click download. One of the most kind of important points to remember for the product reporting spreadsheet is the fact that we use macros. Um, we've built in macros into the spreadsheet to allow for multiple select drop-down responses for specific fields. You'll see, as you'll see in these instructions, that we prompt you to select all that apply for those questions where multiple select is possible. So I'll show you um, what that looks like, and if you make a mistake, how to correct that error for those fields. Worth noting, you only are required for your firm to submit one of these product level reporting spreadsheets. So say you want to open water and you have multiple projects, um, only one of these spreadsheets is required. So you don't need to, um, uh, you'll see, you won't need to provide multiple spreadsheets for every project submission. So every project that you have, you obviously will fill in this basic kind of demographic information or project identification information. So all of your projects, list them out here. It's up to you if if you find it easier to, like skip every line. That won't be a problem on my end. Doing the analysis. If you just want spacing in between, it's really up to you of how you want to input it. There are the actual like macros, as I mentioned, and drop down feature goes down until row 200. So that's how many levels you can go down in one spreadsheet. You could, in theory, also just duplicate it. So move, you have the option to move or copy. You just say correct it, create a copy, and then move to the end of the spreadsheet if you did run out of space, if you have that many fields to fill out. So that's something to note. Yeah, so just make sure you're going through the entire spreadsheet. I know it seems kind of daunting and long, but it's actually pretty user-friendly and easy to fill out, trust me. We have enabled it so that you can scroll left and right, and you'll always have at least your demographic kind of project identification information present at all times, just so you don't get kind of lost as you're completing it. I'll show you here where, let's see, where's the first one where you can select more than one. Am I missing it? Oh yeah, here,
Anything that
perfect.
isn't gray. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that's not gray. I was like, am I okay? So this is one that select all that apply. And also, yeah, Maria, Jay, feel free to hop in any moment. So say I accidentally selected number 7 for this particular field, but I was meant to select 6. Um, the only way to actually remove that option is actually just simply delete. Don't do anything. It's actually locked, the document, so you can't make any like crazy changes, but just select delete and then reselect the ones that you actually wanted to include. That's as simple as that. So don't panic. There might be issues with your macros in terms of enabling macros on your computer. If you do run into any issues around that, it's saying like it comes up with an error saying macros aren't enabled on your desktop. Feel free to shoot me an email and I can hop on a call with you just to get that easily resolved. It's an easy fix. Um,
Yeah,
Maria,
we've
J
tried to put some instructions in open water itself, but if they're a little too confusing, just let us know. We'll help you.
Yeah, and you'll see here also very important on that note, when you're saving it, like when you're downloading it onto your desktop, just make sure that you're saving as an Excel SM, which is an Excel macro enabled workbook. Don't change the formatting, as that will get rid of the macros. Jay, Maria, anything that you want me to highlight in the spreadsheet now?
I think we could maybe describe the two pathways.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're looking at column F, you have a product reporting approach listed there. And we got a lot of feedback on how people wanted to be able to report products last year. And so we're trying to give two options, but keep them very distinct. Those are number one, bolded there, which is to summarize your responses for a product type. So let's say our product type is drywall, and you have three different types of drywall on your project. Maybe you have specifications or you have some internal design guidelines where you know that all of those will comply with certain thresholds, or you have some basic information for all of them. You could say summarize. And then with that, you're going to click summarize. You don't have to use this pink column. That will only be if you use option 2. And then you'll go about answering the rest of the questions for as they would apply, as the answers would apply to all of your types of drywall, all three of them. So if you have information about human health, you would say yes there. The gray columns that you'll see one gray column in each of the 5 impact categories. Those you only respond to if you're using that summarize option. So basically, what this is trying to do for us is distill a little bit of maybe some distinction among those products. Maybe two of them are great performers for a lot of these categories, and one is like, well, it's performance, it doesn't have much. You could say most to help us distinguish how the answers in human health are going to apply across, like generally to those 3 types. And then you'd go across and answer. Maybe you've got HPDs for this one. Maybe you have multiple options for some of the other categories, and you'd go about your choices across the row. Again, summarizing for all 3 of those types of drywall. Your other option is if you want to enter individual product data for your 3 drywall types, you could select option 2 in column F, which is to itemize. And that's when you would actually use that pink column. It's trying to color code for us. And you would list GWB1, GWB2, GWB3, however you want to code it. That's really just to help you keep track of the data you're entering. You don't have to enter manufacturer specific information. It's certainly fine if you want to. But then in this case, you're answering each of the questions in the following columns specific to each of those 3 types of drywall. So you don't need the gray column for this. You're answering for GWB1, I have human health, I had an HPD, and going across the row like that. So presenting both pathways, because we heard from folks that both were done last year, and we didn't have a way to distinguish which was which. So they're both present to be selected, and it doesn't really, you could choose one option for your drywall and one option for your carpet and one option for something else. You don't have to pick the same pathway for all your products. It just has to be the same within a product type. Jay, anything you'd add? What did I miss?
Yeah. Maybe it's probably not shocking, but the spreadsheet won't be perfect and can't do everything. We've been working really hard on this for, I don't know, almost the whole year. And obviously it should be you should see some alignment with the common materials framework, right? In terms of the types of certifications that demonstrate compliance with the impact categories. That said, it is not intended, and nor could we possibly recreate all of the work that's gone into the CMF, especially behind the scenes when you look at all the possible certifications across the entire world. Um, so as this tool was developed, we tried to pick the ones that A, had been part of the materials pledge reporting historically, and then also ones that we felt were known in the industry by folks. That said, you will see, I'm pretty sure for each of the categories, if you have a certificate or a disclosure or optimization document that you want to include that's not on the list, there is an other category, or another selection, if that makes sense, right? So this is not intended to replace or change the structure of the CMF, right? Which, just to reiterate, is really well suited for new products, obviously. But hopefully for reporting, we're in alignment with the CMF structure and certifications, but also providing some options to document, salvage materials, things that aren't necessarily represented in the new product ecosystem for the CMF. Maybe the other one just to hit on, because it does tend to come up. Um, uh, Again, as Melanie said, because this is intended for AIA to be a snapshot of kind of the material and A&D ecosystem for the year, I think, again, if you as a firm or a practitioner, or even on your project team, think about first product types that would be helpful for you to document, or maybe you already have done some documentation, like you're well on your way because the project is pursuing lead. And so you have a good idea for this product type, how you might report on that. That would be a great place to start. And we want to avoid, ideally, hey, I have one product that I want to report on in a product type, and that's it. And that's because that, as Melanie was pointing out, isn't a great, snapshot of the overall product type uh, across your firm and obviously across the whole industry in general. Yeah, I'm sure I'll have other little tidbits, but maybe that's helpful.
Sure, some actual points actually might be come up based on the questions we have in the chat. I haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, so there was a question or a request to walk through one example project for all the categories. I mean, you were sort of just scrolling across to show the different areas. They're basically all the same. They're just drop downs for each column. For a whole row, you would just go across and select yours. Question. So using the macros is required even if the user cannot run them for technical or security reasons. So potentially, if there was no way to enable them, could we just accept a regular spreadsheet with columns instead? I mean, that's a little bit harder to parse on our end on the data side.
So there is a way, just to make sure that this is possible when you're talking about the security issues with your macros. Even within AIA, we had this issue when you were downloading the spreadsheet itself. Please excuse my very messy downloads folder. Do not judge me, please. When you'll see the file itself, here's the product reporting spreadsheet. What you are going to do is go right click on the file itself in your whatever folder it's in on your desktop. And then you're going to go to properties. Because it's already enabled on my laptop, you're not going to see this option, but if there is a security issue, I actually have a screenshot that Jay actually took once when he was explaining how to do this. You'll actually have an option here in security, I believe, right? Or no, it should have been directly in that first tab, right, Jay, in general.
Yeah, there's like an unblock.
Yeah, it'll say
All right.
unblock. Yeah, it will say unblock. So try that now to see if that works. It'll say unblock and then just say apply, okay. And then reopen the file, and that has worked for most people. So if it doesn't, please just send us an email and we're happy to troubleshoot.
Seems like Sophie is saying the select all that apply drop downs only let us select one option. We're summarizing the product reporting. How do we select more than one option?
Wonder if that's an old version of the spreadsheet. I know there were some versions where the macro got kind of tripped up.
Okay, so
Oh,
try.
product type is not. Oh,
So
same for
like
mine actually.
column K, material ingredient optimization documents, if we have both, an HPD and a declare label, how would I select both of those? Because it only shows the one.
Go ahead. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, if you
Oh, we gotta expand it. Okay,
yeah, it's just because there's a lot of text in that one.
Those get
perfect. Thank
really
you.
long for you. Yeah, it's, but yes, we tried to code them with the numbers so that at least you've got like a number queue to see where it transitions. Otherwise, it is just a lot of run-on text.
Sophie, do you want to speak to your second question about the ceiling tile?
Yeah, so we have like a whole certs team here that, gets into like lead and well certified projects. And I had gotten that question from them because it sounds like those certifications kind of track those components separately, like with ACT, like they track the panel and the grid separately, and tile is tracked separately. And so I wasn't sure if the intent is that this is like the assembly of the material, or are we just saying kind of the finish face, like just the ceramic tile or the porcelain tile or the ceiling panel? Like, how do we differentiate that, or do we need to? Are we overthinking it?
So I have an answer, and I'm speaking for myself and my firm and how we think about this. It's kind of from a maybe a lead perspective, and so part of the hope with the reporting is that this is something that your firm or you as a practitioner find useful and relevant and have some return on investment. So I'd say we think about the products as unique from a lead perspective, and how lead defines products. And so if you have the data and want to report on ceiling tiles separately from ceiling grid, I'd say that's great. But there's other practitioners, right, who may just have a single summary row just to document a handful of ceiling panels. So I don't know if that answer helps. Or Maria, you have some thoughts? And I see Alex's hand up as well. Want to make sure we get to her question.
I don't think I would say anything different, Jay. It could be by your preference, and it's I would say if you decide to do all of, in this example, your ceiling tile, the tiles themselves and the grid in a summarize, maybe just make that note for yourself somewhere that you were pulling all of that together, because then it's, some of it might be obvious. Something like recycled content, you probably have recycled content in each of those pieces, so that would be a little less clear. And if you wanted to itemize, you could name things by panel type and grid type if you wanted to get that detailed. But agreed, I think it could be either approach. Um,
Okay, so it's a judgment call kind of on what data is useful for, our firm and reporting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Alex?
Yeah, thanks for putting this on. This is super helpful. My main question is kind of a big one. I'm trying to understand, is the intent of this to report on the performance of our basis of design products, or whether our specs have language that's CMF aligned? So, for example, I have projects where we have high performing basis of design thermal insulation called out, but the CMF aligned documentation is not listed as a required submittal in that spec section. And the fact that this insulation has HPDs and a declare label and whatever is not called out in part 2 as like a performance characteristic that needs to be protected. So what do I do in cases like this? Would you rather that I report on what the BOD selections are or what our specs are actually requiring? Does that make sense?
Come on, Maria. This one's
Jay, you came off mute first.
It's all you.
I don't know. So my answer, I'm going to be slightly jaded because I am also a recovering spec writer. But for me, this pledge and the reporting is about documenting the intent of the design team, right? There are programs, and at some point, hopefully, the pledge will get to a point where we're talking about procured actual impacts and final selected products. Um, so I, to me, it's less, I guess my answer would be if your team used the disclosure and optimization documents to select that high performance BOD, and you have them and you know what they are, I would document that in the reporting spreadsheet.
But if the BOD just happens to have those things, and I don't know that somebody sought out that BOD because of its CMF aligned characteristics, then what?
Right.
I
Right.
I personally think you could still document it because I think it works the opposite direction. Then it works to back inform the firm and say, look, we've got a great basis of design for this. We might have picked it for a performance requirement, but it's also great for human health and circularity or whatever. And it's the opportunity with reporting is then to take that back around. And maybe it goes into the spec from a performance criteria standpoint in part 2, and maybe it doesn't. But it's sort of as Jay was alluding to with a different question, like there are a lot of different ways to use the reporting, and we want there to be some return on investment for you all. So if you happen to know that that thermofiber product, has all of these documents, that can potentially help back inform keeping it as your BOD sort of a thing.
And
And you don't have to, sorry, I want you to hop in, Jay. You don't have to upload any of those documents either. So you don't need to go and collect the HPD and the EPD. We just want to know they actually exist. That level of verification we will leave to lead.
and just peeking a little bit behind the curtain, I think, Alex, what your question is getting at, and I think is exciting to me, is that we already have uh, CMF tech partners who can help provide some of that documentation, right? Um, so there's at least 3 or 4 right now that if your firm is using to collect product information about a project for a project, they can basically do right. Like they've already collected the data that shows the certifications and how they map to the impact categories. And so in a not too distant future, that information will be much easier, to feed into the pledge reporting,
Yeah.
without, yes, I think it's great that it'll improve conversations with the project team about, hey, did you know this thermofiber actually has whatever, as well. But yeah, the tedious part of like knowing and tracking those certifications, I
Yeah.
think is what we're all hoping to kind of move away from.
Thanks. And can you drop a shout to the 4 tech partners in the chat, maybe? Thanks.
Anybody else want to raise hands, ask questions? I don't see anything else in the chat at the moment.
Actually, I have one more.
Sure, go for it.
So I think it's really helpful to have that crosswalk table that you provide with the 22 high impact material categories and then how they map across the 5 CMF um, impact categories, I guess. So I'm wanting to confirm my interpretation is aligned with your intent. I'm seeing that like if a division or if a section is not marked as aligned with a CMF category, then I'm not going to look for alignment in our BOD selection. Does that make sense? So like in the concrete section, it's not marked as like human health aligned. And so therefore, I'm not going to confirm that our concrete sealants have HPD documentation. Does that track with what you want?
I'll make that one a yes and. The goal of that table was kind of multifold. The way that a dot got into any of those cells was based on like 5 or 6 different lenses that we tried to look at it through. So if there's not a dot, it doesn't actually mean there's no data. It just means you're less likely to find it and or it has less impact, maybe is less available across lots of products in that product type. So it's we personally have definitely used the table that way as a starting point. Look, like it's a ton of data to try and collect for a whole bunch of products. So let's start by just finding the data for the cells where there are dots. For concrete, focus on climate health, and for some of the others, do multiple. It does not. It's not intended to say there's no data there. It's intended to suggest that it might be harder to find or less consistent across products in that type. Does that again, there's a lot of gray, but it's intended to be a starting point so that people and our firms don't have to grapple with tons and tons of data to get going, but can actually find some high impact opportunities to improve.
Yeah, so I'm hearing you say that start that matrix as a starting point for what type of performance to expect from different spec sections, but eventually expand from this starting point.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
Christy, Melanie, Jay, anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think I noted the terminology aligns with those impact categories, and I think that the intent of the chart was what Maria said, and also, maybe thing to focus on first because that's where that product has the most impact right now. Not that the other ones are not aligned, they just haven't been shown to have as outsized impact in those other buckets.
I would also add that we use it in terms of we have our own material policy, and so maybe something's not marked as saying it needs to follow the human health, but we still would want to be checking for that. And so internally we've identified more opportunities and things that we want to look for. And so that could be a way as well. Maybe, you start with the things that are identified there, but if there's certain things internally that you've identified in your firm that are more important to you, you can also start, look for those items and track those.
Yeah, so I wanted to call out Christy, Melanie, and Amy are also on our Materials Pledge working group, so are great resources. And question came in about working with specific tech partners. I don't know if anybody wanted to share their thoughts or if it's too too much to get into. Do people have preferences or something that works better or not? The AIA does not endorse any particular.
Yeah. And maybe I'll at least say that the terms we're using, right? And I'll probably, somebody who's more in the weeds with Mindful should correct this, but with the Mindful Material Toolkit and CMF Toolkit that came out in, I think, November last year, there was the announcement about sanctioned or, official tech partners or CMF tech partners. So there's, I feel like 8 or 9 that were in that original list that do, some sort of database management that can be used for product or project level, everything from material bank to red to green. I guess those are kind of two ends of the spectrum in my brain. And since that time, we've caught wind or interacted with some of them in terms of their development for pledge reporting, and that's how we're keeping track of it. If that makes sense.
I think I would just add, I've been exposed to most of them, and they were rushing to get to where we need them to be. We need to give them some grace. They're not, where they would like to be. If you're using one of the tools and the products that are not as good are not in there, we are asking if you're reporting a category to report everything in the project in that category. So don't just report the 2 good things they have in their website. Please add in the thing that was not there. Also we found one that wasn't hitting, the report out wasn't saying all of, when you're supposed to mark all of the ones that correlate with that question, it was only giving 1. So you just need to check the data a little bit on that side, and we really are encouraging them to get there. We're hopeful that next year, it'll be way farther advanced, but they've honestly made leaps and bounds in 3 months. So very glad to have them moving.
We were finishing our spreadsheet right before it launched, which didn't give them any time to truly respond in a final format. So to my knowledge, none of them export what needs to be uploaded for reporting, but many of them have something that you could use as a starting point to then transfer data into what needs to be uploaded. And that's, we're kind of trying to eliminate steps at a time. And hopefully there'll be a seamless piece in the, like others have said, in the near future. But the management, I'll make one more note, the relationship between Mindful Materials and the CMF and the Materials Pledge. The CMF tech partners are partnered with the CMF, and there's arrangements there on their relationship and how detailed they will be in reporting out based on the CMF. So a lot of that is handled through Mindful Materials and the CMF. And then the reporting piece is sort of this link between, like, how can they use the work they're doing there to support the pledge reporting. And I think actually one of the other resources that's available in the Community Hub from the Large Firm Roundtable talks about platforms as well. That could be another resource for folks to look at. I don't remember which piece or where they're saved.
I will send the link.
Yes, they're also in the library of the Materials Pledge peer-to-peer network. And yeah, we can share the exact link. Great point.
I want to throw out there too that they're taking feedback very, very seriously. So if you work with any of these partners and you have feedback for them about how they can help you do this better next year, please tell them, because they're working on it. They make updates daily. Like they're trying to get us what we need.
I was going to hit on one question that does seem to come up fairly often. It's a little bit different than what we're talking about, but it's a good reminder for us. In the publication of the product types, we've included CSI master format spec sections, and just those are not meant to be exclusive. So I guess, and I think on Andrew's slide, like, think about the product type and what it's describing first. If your firm specifies metal studs in some spec section that's different than what's listed, don't consider that something to change, right? It's just intended to be a guide.
I have a question about the direction of the program.
Yeah.
As this continues to evolve, is the vision for Materials Pledge that firms would be reporting in theory, like all of the products we use on any project across the firm, or is it intended to be more of a narrow scope, like limited to certain projects?
We've talked a lot about evolution of the program, but not actually that. I think because it's terrifying.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
thinking.
yeah. So I think the goal in this will continue to evolve. The evolution steps have been more around, do we take it from reporting design intent at the end of CDs and then also add as-builts? So how do we start to cover the ground of what changes during construction? Like that's a piece in the future that's been talked about first before adding
Yep.
100% of materials. I think there's a desire for, as Christy was saying, for our tech partners to continue to act as fast as they are to help with that management of information side. I think for anyone on who's tried to internally develop documentation libraries, with how fast things change, we know that there's a technology piece in this ecosystem that has to grow for us to manage some of that. Others want to jump in on the hypothesis of all materials.
Well, I was going to say from the AIA's point of view, I'm always wanting to zoom out and look at the whole industry. So I might not be as interested in a certain kind of, I don't know, nail or something that is really not getting used across the industry, and putting my Simona hat on, thinking about what stories are we telling back, what success stories, case studies are we sharing back with the industry to see where there's been either the most movement or the most documentation or things like that are more meaningful to us as the AIA than trying to kind of cover all kinds of products in all categories. And I kind of leave that more to mindful materials and the CMF work. And we focus more on kind of the project stories, the narratives, the things that are going to move the industry.
Yeah, actually,
Really helpful framing to think about what is being reported as one of those data points, not just how
yeah.
it's performing.
Yeah, I think while the spreadsheet approach this year for reporting looks, grossly different from years past, the volunteer team this year with the working on the questions actually poured, I'd say, if not the same or more energy into the project level questions. A lot, partially because we heard firms saying, hey, help us, demonstrate how we can use the reporting to, advance what we want to do in our firm, talk to leadership, compare projects. So I would encourage you to take a look at the project level questions this year. Like when you back out kind of some of the general, just what's this project? It's like, I don't know, 15 or 20 questions. But they're really honed in on the team's approach to materials and strategies used. And I feel like it's an optional, reporting piece, but I think it gets to a lot of what we've talked about, just about, how do teams make, and practitioners and firms and the industry in general make better decisions about materials, because the materials will always, right, continue to evolve, and the metrics that we evaluate them on will continue to evolve, which is great. But I think, right, like if we're talking about how we track and measure the choices that we make when we have a choice, I feel like there's a lot in that project level questioning that could be helpful for firms.
Got about 10 minutes left. Anybody want to get their question answered? Or anybody from the working group want to share what's worked well within their firm or tips and tricks?
While folks are thinking, I can just share one thing that where our approach to reporting has changed each year, but the piece that stays kind of consistent is that at the moment we are in a phase of just familiarizing everyone with the pledge and the components of it and the impact categories and the kind of the what. We have about 450 people at Ewing Cole, so just as an example. So our approach is projects across markets and across offices. And one of the things that I think I found, because again, it's not about just high performing projects. That is one of the best questions, I think, in the project level questions. There's one you get to define if it's sort of a low, medium, or high performing project from a material standpoint, is just that opportunity to look at, oh, okay, that didn't happen on this project. How could I get that to happen on my next project? What would it mean for me to think about deconstruction of some of these material systems? And how could I do that? Or I know a client who would be interested in that sort of approach next time. So I think that's something we're definitely getting out of it, beyond just getting a report at the end, right? Is that opportunity just to have those conversations and bring some topics that everyone in every spot may not be thinking of all the time.
I'll add on to that because we are kind of doing the same thing. We are about a 250-person firm with 9 offices, and the way we selected our projects to report, we made sure we got projects from every office. But in the end, we realized our exercise was to get the questions in front of the designers. So we actually made sure that at least every interior design lead in the firm had a project that was getting reported. And then we had a PM, if it wasn't the interior design lead, join them, and a junior designer, so that the maximum number of people actually went through the list of questions. And it was really thought provoking the way Maria said, and ooh, I didn't do anything there, but I could do it next time. So I think that was the most value we got out of our reporting this year.
And on the very other end of the spectrum, I'm with Bora Architects in Portland, Oregon. This is Amy running, and our firm is less than 100 people. And we are actually reporting all the projects in our office that fall within this reporting timeframe. And that's partially because it's a very small list for us. But and we have yet to have deep conversations with our bigger teams during this reporting period, but have been trying to organize those in a way that is more all office focused, just because we are a smaller office.
More questions here. I just put a link to our materials pledge playlist on the YouTube channel if you want more information or things to share with your firm. I'm going to read out this comment. We collated project product level information using last year's spreadsheet over the summer. How different is this year's spreadsheet so we know if there will need to go back and supplement or redo the tracking of info to report per project?
It is different.
The project level is definitely different. Yeah.
Both are.
Yeah.
Product is actually smaller. We cut a bunch out of the product questions. So a lot of the content and the responses will be the data you're looking for will be the same, but it's going to go into like different columns, if you will. We cut out like at least a third of questions from kind of a redundancy standpoint, or not as effective. So I think the data you have is probably there again, like still collecting HPDs and declare labels and EPDs and such. But it's probably needs to be in different columns. And the spreadsheet that will be evaluated is the one that's been showed. We will not do that again at such a high level for you all in the next year. That's certainly been discussed. It's this balance of optimizing as kind of as quickly as we can, but knowing that there are firms out there getting things set up to track in an ongoing fashion, which of course is the ideal. We don't want to hinder that process. too much. Not that we won't have updates. Should probably say that, but not as extensive. A couple other good comments there in the chat too. Thank you, Sophie and Jessica.
Yeah, I would also say on the peer-to-peer network, if you have a tool or something strategy that works for your firm, please share it. We'd love to see those things. I mean, it's truly meant to be a peer-to-peer network where people are sharing resources for each other to make this easier. All right, looks like we might give you a couple more minutes back in your schedule. Thank you so much for joining. And if there are any questions we didn't answer, email the materials at aia.org and we will get an answer to your question. But thanks to all the working group members for joining and all your great questions. Really appreciate it.